Hey everybody, welcome to Live on Wednesdays. Today we're talking about where does fatigue come from? And fatigue can come from a variety of different sources. Today I'm going to specifically talk about another aspect of traditional Chinese medicine, which is the spleen, pancreas, and stomach. And mostly we're going to focus on the spleen, but the pancreas and the stomach are the partner organs for it. So they're going to be involved as well. And when you think about the stomach, the first thing that comes into my mind is digestion. And what do I always say? Digestion is like the key to health, because it is not only is it what you absorb, but how much you absorb, right? I mean, you can eat the best diet possible, but if you're not absorbing the foods, the nutrients, it does you no good. So, when you are chronically fatigued, I mean, we know we get fatigued all the time. We might have put in an exhausting day working in the yard or enjoying day of recreation. And I'm not talking about that kind of fatigue. I'm talking about the long-term chronic fatigue that just has no explanation for it maybe, or it just doesn't go away. So when we are chronically fatigued, that is an indication that your body is trying to tell you something. Maybe that it's not getting enough nutrients that it needs. So in traditional Chinese medicine, the major role of the spleen is to transform food and liquids into nutrients, the blood and the energy, and then distributes them throughout the body to other organs and tissues. Now, this is really a huge task. It requires a lot of energy, right? I mean, when you think about just making a meal, that requires a lot of energy. I spent all day yesterday batch cooking, and like today I don't want to be in the kitchen anymore. I just would love to just lay around and do nothing. But that's not the way life is. But you can see how just things like that can be exhausting. Now imagine if some of your vital organs are working overtime and working very, very hard, how exhausting it is to do those major tasks for your body. Okay? So, if a person is overworked or malnourished, it's not uncommon for a typical person today, because let's face it, most people are working a lot and they're going to grab the easy road, which is fast food, which I don't know that anybody can say it has top nutrients in it. It's convenient, it's easy, but it doesn't necessarily provide you with the nutrients that you need. So most people are going to be undernourished or a little malnourished on the side. So that means that the spleen will become deficient and unable then to manufacture sufficient amounts of blood and energy. Okay, so if this becomes a continuous chronic thing, as I mentioned at the beginning, you may become not only energy deficient, but also blood deficient. So in traditional Chinese medicine, fatigue is often attributed to a deficiency in the spleen qi, or the spleen energy. So if the spleen is weak, then that transportation of fluids is going to be impaired. It's either going to take more energy to get it where it needs to go, or it just won't get gotten there. It just won't go. So rather than being dispersed, there could be a fluid retention, which in Chinese medicine is referred to as dampness. Now, one of the main symptoms of dampness is edema. And it will normally begin in the lower extremities, like in the ankles, like in the legs, the lower legs first. And the nature of dampness is that it slows the processes down and it makes things sluggish. And I think we could, just picture that. If you have more to move through, if there's fluid sitting there and you're trying to move it along, it just takes longer to do it. So a weak spleen will lead to weak muscles, particularly the limbs, as in, the legs and so forth. It can lead to a sensation of solidity and heaviness, that heaviness in the limbs. So it could feel like you're walking around with weights around your ankles, quite honestly. So where else can fatigue come from? A deficiency in spleen qi can also result in inadequate nourishment for the organs, which makes sense because you're not dispersing that liquid, those nutrients are not being dispersed to the organs, and so that's going to suppress their optimal functions, which is going to again cause you to feel sluggish and tired. So this decreased organ function will include your digestion. So the partner organs for the spleen are pancreas and stomach. So it should not surprise you that other symptoms of dampness for the spleen are poor energy, poor appetite, sluggishness, gas, bloating, loose stools. Again, all indications of digestive issues, right? So this will all eventually lead to tiredness, fatigue, lethargy, and poor concentration. Poor concentration, whoa, what does that have to do with digestion? Well, it has everything to do with digestion, but the spleen in TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine, governs your thought processes. So, like you're thinking, concentrating, studying, focusing. If your spleen is healthy, it will generally have an active, practical, responsible ability, able to study well and memorize efficiently. If there is an unhealthy spleen, low qi, dampness, then there is a tendency to have a busy mind, overthinking things, and manifesting a stuck behavior. So what does that translate to? That means a person might go over and over and over and over again and again the same thought or emotion without the ability to be able to let it go. Right? You can't let it go. So what can a person do about this kind of thing? Well, it could be some habits that we're having. It could, for instance, we might have inconsistent eating habits. We might have like eating at different times of the day, or skipping meals, or overeating. When you do end up eating, maybe you skip a meal and then your evening meal, you're like way overeating because you're thinking, oh, I got to make up for the day. I'm super, super hungry. So you end up overeating. And that plays a huge part. Or eating too much rich and greasy foods, or maybe when your posture, your body language, your posture when you are eating, are you like this, eating your food? That crunches or stifles that digestion. It crimps it, puts a crimp in it, so to speak, so things aren't moving through there smoothly. So if you're doing that, like hunched over and watching TV at the same time, get your posture a little bit better. So basically, it without proper digestion, not a lot of healing can take place. So again, everything backs up to digestion. So I'll be putting more helpful suggestions in the blog that I write up for this, but these are just some ideas of where fatigue can come from. And a lot of them are just simple things that we can be doing, but another good point is that foods like dairy, sugar, cold items, non-room temperature, but cold items, tend to make the spleen more sluggish. Even, on the one hand, the spleen likes sweetness, but when it gets too much, it will do the opposite effect. The opposite effect. So if you are experiencing these symptoms, you're going to want to cut way back on your sweetness, your sweeteners. And I'm not talking, even your natural sweeteners, I'm not just talking like your white sugar and your honey. I mean, I'm talking all natural sweeteners, even fruit. Too much fruit is a sweetener. So each person has to be able to figure out, like if you've just eaten some fruit and all of a sudden you're feeling sluggish and tired, your body's trying to tell you something. Listen to your body. Each person is different, and there's no one way fits all for everybody. Listen to your body, friends. Now, go be awesome.